Call the meeting to order with a prayer. Heavenly Father, we pray that your teachings will guide us in this meeting and in our lives. Lord, please look after those who have fallen in defense of our country. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Patrick Hackett.
Here.
Chad Longbones.
Here.
Carter Dickerson.
Here.
Christy Arlinghouse. Here. Vince Albanese.
Here.
Bob Mueller.
Here.
Okay. Next item is approval of minutes, January 14th, 2019 council meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 14th, 2019.
Christie's made a motion.
Chad
Chad,
Longbones.
second.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Carter Dickerson.
Yes.
Christy Arlinghouse.
Yes.
Vince Albanese.
Yes.
Bob Mueller.
Yes.
Patrick Hackett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Next item is February 14th, February 4th, 2019 special meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Chad's made a motion.
I'll second.
Carter second.
Christy Arlinghouse.
Present but abstaining.
Vince Albanese.
Yes.
Bob Mueller.
Yes.
Patrick Hackett.
Yes.
Chad Longbones.
Yes.
Carter Dickerson.
Yes.
Okay. Fire Authority report. Jeff.
Good evening. I think April sent out the notes that I had in your packets. I'll go over a couple of things real quick. We had 71 ambulance runs for January. That's up 3 from last year. 62 fire calls. That's up 14 from last year. I did send out information about a structure fire on Enid last week. Fire went fairly well. It was quick. Quite a bit of damage to the house. We had another structure fire in Bromley. We sent 15 guys to Bromley to help with their fire. I also sent out information earlier about our ISO rating. We're very proud to get an ISO 2. There was only 305 in the country that are a 2, and 1,482 that are a 2, and only 36 in Kentucky. The only class better than that is a Class 1. There's 305 Class 1s in the country and only 8 in Kentucky, so we did very well in that. Downside is as insurance rates go down, so do your insurance premium that you collect, so
Yeah.
it's kind of a double-edged sword. But that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Matt, finance report.
Thank you, Mayor. Really 2 reports. The first was distributed with your packet, and that was really for the 6-month that ended January 28th. That was the packet we were going to review at the last caucus meeting before it got moved. So you should have a copy of that if you want to review kind of just the 6 months numbers, bullet points, talking about kind of where the numbers are. And the document that I just passed out is a little bit more updated. That's reflective of the 7-month numbers. For the numbers through the month ending January 31st. Again, similar format, providing you the balance sheet information. The revenues year to date were about 1.8 million versus 1.9 million the prior year. We're down about 118,000. I can tell you almost all of that is in insurance premium tax. We had a fantastic insurance premium tax receipts last year that is not duplicated again this year. That's the biggest shortfall of revenue. On the expense side, again, I kind of list each of the departments as well as the top 5, the expense items for each of those categories. You'll kind of see on both administrative department and public works departments, some of the biggest increases are in payroll. So in the administration, we're up about 10% year over year, and in public works, we're about 20% year over year. So that kind of combination of lower revenue, higher expenses, is kind of dropping to the bottom line. We are being greatly helped by the safety services savings that's coming out, but all told, you kind of see the bottom line of the revenue being about 259 so far year to date versus 310 the prior years. That's down about 16%. Just calling out the second page is really just a graphical representation of those same numbers. Just kind of calling out to you the comment I made on the last page, which really shows you that shortfall in the revenue side of the insurance premium tax, kind of in that highlighted box. You see that we're down about 176 and 174.6 of it is from insurance premium tax. So all told, the main revenue side's pretty consistent. We are seeing the gross receipts a little bit down, but again, that does fluctuate pretty consistently from month to month. It's just never the same number twice. So that's all I have for a finance report. I'm going to talk about the LED lights if there's any questions on that. LED, my update is that I don't have a great update for you, other than I did finally receive over the weekend the drawing plans from Duke Energy on the light poles that are being replaced. So our contact has moved to departments, and his out of office has a new contact. One of those individuals was on paternity leave, so it took me a while to find the right person, but he did send over the schematics of the actual light poles that are being replaced. I now have to transfer that to the Duke Energy bill to figure out which ones those are, so we can do the math to make sure that it's the right payback in terms of period. So as soon as I can complete that analysis in April, I still may need your help on that to figure out which pole goes with which one, because I might need another set of eyes. I'll get through that and be able to kind of come back to you and say this is kind of the recommendation based on the payback periods of how fast those will pay back.
Are we under any timeline, or is the quote's only good for so long?
Yeah, the quote technically was only good through like December 12th anyway. So it was given to George back when he was here. So when I inquired of the new contact, he sent me a copy of what had already been proposed, and he didn't say anything about, hey, this is dead. So I'm assuming we'll be able to negotiate. Yep. That's all I have.
Any questions? Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Police report, Brian.
This month we had about 659 calls in the city, which is about average what we expect. We did solve, we were able to close 4 burglaries up on International. We arrested the gentleman, recovered some of the property on that. So we were able to close some of that. We are seeing some thefts from the construction sites. Fisher Homes was the latest to get hit this morning. The building next to the paint store got hit a couple weeks ago. That was during the day while they were at lunch. So we are looking into those and increasing patrols in those areas. We see Buttermilk is the #1 top roadway collision for the month. So we're working on that, working some traffic. We do have the traffic grant money. We are using that to supplement patrols. So that's it. If there's any questions.
Saturday morning, I noticed a car nose down in the creek on Brownlee Crescent Springs Road. What happened there, do you know?
Saturday morning, I believe it was, I think it was the ice. It was just the ice, and it just caught at the right time. It went in. I don't think there's no injuries in it. It just pulled it out. There has been some questions on trucks on Bromley Crescent Springs Road. That is a state road. There's nothing I can do until the state changes it. I can't stop the trucks. I can't cite them. There's nothing we can do until the state does something for us, and we've asked. So, on that, I have nothing else.
It was just one, and on International, that was just one person doing all of that?
It was one person,
Burglary.
but we had 4, possibly 5. And we so we were able to close 5 of the burglaries. We got stuff back from 4 of them, and on a 5th one, we're still trying to make the case. But he was out on bond for an arrest we had 3 weeks ago. He's a convicted felon, so he's got some time hanging over his head. So should have solved the problem.
Great, thanks.
Right. Thank you, Brian. Okay, Dewey, Public Works.
I don't have much. I've been doing some painting and work down here in the city building, inside work. With all the rain and stuff that's going on, we're keeping the catch basins clean, watching the creeks and stuff, make sure they don't get stopped up. We put in a new furnace and AC unit down here at the city building. I had one of the oldest ones that was like 22 years old, broke down, so we had to have one put in because of the cold weather. And we lost one employee, quit on us because he was moving to Ohio. So we're down to 4 of us. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Dewey.
Are there plans to hire?
I was talking to Lou about that. He said he would get with me later on.
If we had a big snow, could you adequately cover it right now?
Oh, yeah, we got plenty of people, yeah. I have 2
That
people
was the
back
question.
for us too.
That's the main question right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll make sure it gets done.
yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. On the mayor's report, the item is the survey letter to residents that I passed out at the caucus meeting. You didn't get one, Vince.
I know.
We got a copy on
It
email.
went out via email.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you got it in email, but
Well, I'll see if my wife will let me on the computer.
Well,
here, here's another copy.
Thank you.
fine.
Okay.
Just wanted to know if there was any suggestions, comments.
I think, like we talked in the caucus, it's a good idea. I mean, it's just you keep your finger on the pulse of, what folks are thinking.
Right.
But can, the total cost of this is $1,600, is that right?
Roughly, yeah.
Okay.
Do we have the survey on the webpage on Facebook?
No. You might
Not
hear
yet.
somebody putting it in a million times.
That's true.
Well,
It's hard to
if this
track
is all right and everybody's in agreement on it, we'll
Yeah.
get that out in the next week or two.
Okay,
I think that sounds good.
all right.
All right. Old business, I don't think there's anything under old business. Next item is new business, PDS presentation. Andy? This is on the text amendment that we passed at the special meeting.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Council members, good evening. For the record, my name is Andy Podakovich, and I'm manager with Planning and Development Services. So I think you are relatively familiar with these text amendments and the reason why these text amendments came up. But just for the folks in the audience or perhaps watching on TV, I'll take just a minute to try to briefly explain these text amendments. So the first text amendment is to include drive-throughs as an accessory use to eating and drinking places within the neighborhood commercial zone. Currently, drive-throughs are permitted within the neighborhood commercial zone for restaurants, but what that means is that you could have an establishment that only does drive-through business, so doesn't have any other kind of sit-down or carry out or anything like that. So what this will do is it will still allow for drive-throughs, but it will allow it only as an accessory use to some other type of restaurant business. So it has to have like some sort of indoor seating component or something like that. Can't just strictly be a drive-through restaurant. Like it's kind of hard to think of an example, but like perhaps a Rally's or something that you kind of see that just does the drive-through business. The second part of this is to add outdoor dining in conjunction with a restaurant. This is very similar to what is allowed in some of your other zoning districts, including some of the requirements that go along with that, such as the time limits on outdoor entertainment, operating hours outside, how big that area can be in terms of in conjunction, in relation to the total indoor seating. So again, this is very similar to what is done in other zones. I'll just point out that it can't exceed 25% of the indoor dining area. So however many seats are indoor, you can only have 25% of it outside. And live entertainment and unamplified music is permitted between the hours of 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. And the outdoor dining areas shall be operated no later than midnight, Sunday through Thursday, and 2:30 on Friday and Saturday. In terms of setbacks, so if it's adjacent to a residential zone, they must meet the required setbacks for within that zone. If it's adjacent to any other type of use, any other type of zone, then it has to be set back at least 10 feet. Finally, the final text amendment is to decrease the number of off-street parking spaces required for this type of restaurant. So the current regulations is 1 parking space for each 2 employees, plus 1 space for each 65 square feet of restaurant, or 2 seating accommodations, whichever is greater. The proposed text amendment will reduce that requirement to 1 space for 2 employees, that's not changing, plus 1 space for each 125 square feet of gross floor area, or 2 seating accommodations, whichever is greater. So you're talking about reducing it by about half, but I would like to point out that this is very similar to what some other jurisdictions have done in terms of reducing the number of off-street parking spaces for this type of use. They basically are running into the same issues, is that there's these businesses and the requirement is for perhaps a green field out in suburbia, but it doesn't really fit for these infill developments. It's also very similar with the Z21, the blueprint code that we're coming up with for all the cities. We're moving away from what the standard is within the zoning ordinance and moving towards a more like 1 per 100, 1 per 200 square feet type of model. So I would say that this is very consistent, even though it seems like a drastic decrease, it's very consistent with what we're seeing across the county and what other cities are doing. I would like to point out that Covington requires even fewer. They do 1 per 200 square feet. So it does even go fewer than that. And although we're not involved with Covington on a day-to-day basis, I'm not aware of any issues they really had with not enough parking being provided for restaurants. So that concludes, that does not conclude. The Planning Commission did have a public hearing on this on last Thursday, and they sent it to you with a favorable recommendation. Entirely unanimous. There was no opposition, and there was really no questions even for staff or Mr. Baker, who was at the meeting. So they didn't see any issues with it. And like I said, send it to you all with a favorable recommendation, a unanimous recommendation.
What will be the total number of parking spaces now?
So it depends on the size of the building. So it's kind of hard for me to do the math in my head, but it depends on the size of the building.
Okay.
For the specific one we're talking about here, Mr. Ryan, you know this
It'll
one.
be 30, roughly 29,
Okay.
30.
Okay, and under the current requirement, what would that be?
Well, the current requirement, I'm not sure, but under the proposed text, we would be under the threshold, and they could have 10 employees. So this particular user, it would be rare that they have 10 employees.
What is the square footage of the building?
2068.
2,068?
Correct.
So under the current regulations, they'd be required to provide 31 spaces plus whatever they need would be required per employee. So over 32 spaces, I would say. Under what's proposed, again, what was that number again? 5,000?
It was 2,668.
2006 divided by 125. About 16, 17 spaces, and then, of course, they would have to have extra for their employees. So you're looking about, again, maybe 22, 23 spaces.
The city has relaxed its parking requirements in other zones in this city. I mean,
Yes, and that is true, specifically for up around the, like the McDonald's area, the Ritchie Road area, specifically for drive-through restaurants that did majority of the business through drive-through, so yeah.
Why did we go to that number, 125?
And I'm happy to hop up here. My name's Clayton Riney with Midland Atlantic Properties. We are the reason, obviously, the text amendment's being asked for. But we went there because it's mainly because in order, the number of parking spots we could fit on the property dictated the 125. So the 29 spots that we have currently laid out for the site allows us to have the 125 ratio and then be able to have 10 employees. Because the code reads that whatever the max number of employees you have to provide 1 space per every 2 employees. So your that, under the current code, the 2,668 would require 21 spaces. And then 5 employee spots would be 26. And you gotta round up, so it's 27 spots.
This, you weren't here at the meeting that we had, so let me give a little detail, a little background for you. This particular property they're talking about is currently inhabited by a financial institution on Buttermilk Pike that's going to be moving out of town. And so they're wanting, his client's going to take the space and put in a combination drive-through, sit-down spot that the name will be familiar to you. So it's trying to address the needs of that particular place, but at the same time also, within the entire NC zone, which is this side of Buttermilk Pike, basically, where on down the road, will allow developers and owners to be able to be a little bit more flexible in the use of their property to maximize retail.
Okay, I guess my other question would be, what about the volume? What are we gonna, compared to the other stores and the volume that we have in this area, is that gonna be able to hold that and contain,
Well,
their employees plus whatever?
Fair question. It is in excess of what they typically require. Like the zoning code as it's written is pretty extensive and a little antiquated. So this text amendment brings it closer to what kind of industry.
It comes under the industry. In other words, we're gonna have fewer spaces than what's actually gonna be, than what's required with the standard industry now, correct?
I'm not sure I follow. Can you repeat that one more time?
Well, the way you worded your question here, I'm saying we're gonna be under the standard that the industry is right now, correct?
I think Andy's saying that some of the neighboring cities have lowered their standard and we're lowering it to.
Yeah, and what I'm asking, Andy, is are we the same amount of cars, or are we under that amount of cars as the other ones?
We would be over what this particular user would, in a normal situation, would require.
Now, I want to know if we're over the other cities.
In this particular scenario, I believe you are. I think I'd have to do the math. I don't know if the higher number requires less parking. I think that's the way it works. So in the one examples he brought up, it was the other municipalities changed it from 1 to 65 to 1 to 100.
Okay.
So yeah, you're.
Okay, what I'm concerned with is the volume of cars that are going to be in there on the certain times that people are going to the store. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I realize they're not going to be there all day long. Okay, that's not the problem. The problem is going to be in the mornings, and that volume going in and out of there. Are they going to be able to handle that going with a lower number of parking places is what I'm worried about.
Well, based on this particular user, 60+% of their sales is through the drive-through. So.
Until people get frustrated and they park and go in and get something, right?
Yeah, potentially.
Okay, yeah.
And, so I would say, based on the fact that we'll have more parking than they require, I think it bodes well for the.
More parking and that's what I'm asking, who requires? More parking than who requires?
Than that particular user. So
And we're basing that on what?
On the.
On what they in the other cities, what they do in the other cities? How much?
Right, they're thousands of stores that they have.
That's what I want to know.
But, so I don't know if there are any other questions. Obviously valid concerns there, but so we're the interest holder for the property currently. The U.S. Bank is moving down the street, so hopefully if we can get this text amendment, we should be at least 75% of the way there. One piece of information that is new to us as of last week is that they're putting a median in from the going southbound on Buttermilk, the stop block at Anderson Road. They're putting a median in straight down the middle of the road. So that was new to us. None of the property owners were notified. The state has said they're exercising their police powers, which I guess they have the right to do and not contact property owners. So that's happening. I don't think there's anything that can be done. So this particular user is still weighing the impact of a median and pretty much making it a right-in, right-out only. So pretty much servicing Villa Hills and Crescent Springs and, largely no one else. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but, they have the information, they're making the decision.
I thought that's what they were looking for, to go on the work side of Buttermilk.
Yeah, that's kind of what how we've discussed it with them, is that people that live in this area, we know how to navigate. Nothing is easy in way of access. So the people that are coming off the freeway or coming from Fort Mitchell, if they really want, this particular user's product, they'll find a way in. So
I think they're gonna have a hard time getting out through the drive-through onto Buttermilk at rush time going out of the city.
Yeah.
I mean, only a nice person's going to let a couple cars out.
You saying we're not nice people?
I said, no, a couple out.
well, that's
You can't sit there all day.
I understand. I'm not sure how that's going to play out.
I can just see it backing up.
It's a matter.
Yeah, it's the same way right with the user right now.
Yeah, I know.
But those good people let them out, so,
Yeah, but they don't open up till 9 o'clock, 9:30.
It's true.
right.
Is there a time frame for your client to make that decision?
Well, we found out last Monday, so they've had a week. I think that, certainly in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, so before our March meeting, you would anticipate that decision?
I should have it. I mean, we're looking at other options, so it's not, well, we can't get the right-in, right-out, or it's a right-in, right-out, therefore we're not doing it. If that's the answer, then we would try to go back to the drawing board and find, an option, whether it be, I don't know if it's in a neighborhood commercial or something else, but yeah, I would like to have that answer. I would like to have had it tonight, but.
Well, I appreciate that. We would too, obviously, but could I ask you to let me know when they do make their decision?
Absolutely.
And the exploration of other options also included to the rear of the property?
Well, the big concern is not, I think, is the left end, getting people in to the
Going out the
property.
back of the property towards
Yeah,
one of the neighborhoods.
Terracotta.
It would take a lot to do, but
Yeah, we would have to either buy the property in the back or figure out an arrangement with the owner of the Ameristop. And we've talked about it, but it doesn't get, those folks would have to go left on Anderson around the hardware store. And, it's
Well,
just,
this product, I know people that drive 5 or 6 miles to get one of them. So-
yeah, I mean, well, that's what we're trying to sell them is, that it's a challenge, and frankly, it isn't what we thought when we entered into the agreement. But the dangerous situation, and the officer mentioned that Buttermilk was one of the most dangerous roads or something of that point. But so it may be taking a dangerous situation and eliminating it, but it feels like that left in could be accommodated. But the state, I don't think, is interested in that. Yeah.
But I have one other question. Are we limited to the amount of square footage that you said? So in other words, let's say the council or whoever decides that instead of, the number was 125 square feet now. Well, what if we decided that, it would have to be less? square, I mean, can we dictate how many square feet we want? In other words, so we can get a few more extra spaces, is what I'm asking.
Right.
So, you know, who sets that number?
Sure, so it's my opinion that I think the council does have that purview, but I would defer to your attorney to actually make the determination on what would make this basically a substantially different request than what was heard by the planning commission.
Because if we pass this now, that means that everybody gets the same thing.
Right.
You know, and is that what we want? You know, that it's that tight everywhere in the city? You know, I think that's something we need to think about.
What's
You know.
14 properties, I think you had said in the planning commission meeting, the neighborhood commercial. So it affects on Buttermilk, the stretches, this property, the Ameristop, La Rosa's, which is already difficult for parking.
Yeah, but they're gonna,
Friday, Saturday. night.
right, but they're even gonna be able to stuff more cars in there then.
Well,
You know, if this passes, correct?
I wouldn't know how they'd stuff any more than they already.
Yeah, no, I know, I agree, but I mean, legally, they can make the parking places tighter and make it even more of a problem than it is now.
A place like La Rosa's, I would consider that a sit-down restaurant, which makes it a different classification within
Right.
off-street parking.
I understand that.
But what this would affect would be all the drive-through fast food restaurants along Hazelwood and Ritchie up in that direction. But I think, as Mr. Baker said, the parking has already been significantly reduced up in that area, specifically to allow for some of these things to actually go restaurants to be able to like stay here and improve their properties and then meet the current demands for off-street parking. So you're right, it does apply to more than just the neighborhood commercial zone, but I think there's other extenuating circumstances too. They may even get a bigger reduction up there on the up by the fast food places up there. So.
Okay.
And you're not voting on it tonight, by the way.
Right.
Well, yeah, I know, but I want to get the information out, because when you're thinking about it, I mean, you know, it's not just right there, it's going to be everywhere.
Everywhere where it's NC zone.
That's correct.
Right.
Which, it's like, down the street, you've got the, you know, I don't even know, there's a car park place, and there's like a towing facility. So, you know, one would think if you could get, you know, a combination fast food guy there, that may be better than what's there. But we're somewhat limited with the size of this particular parcel. So we're fitting, we're squeezing it for all we can squeeze.
I understand that, and that's what I'm worried about.
Well, I say that meaning that if we could fit more parking, we would. But in way of what the industry, these type of users, what is normal is the 125, what isn't, and what is excessively on the opposite end of what operators look for is what the code is currently written at. One spot for 65, that's, you know, you're talking about like Walmart sized parking fields for a 5,000 foot restaurant. It's just not, practical, especially when, you know, we're all gonna have autonomous vehicles in 5 years, so.
We might.
Yeah, let's hope.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think the Starbucks industry interested in autonomous vehicles.
Okay. February 20th is the finance meeting. 25th is our next caucus meeting. And March the 6th is events and recreation.
I've had a number of questions lately about Bromley Crescent Springs Road, just with all of the deterioration that's happening lately. Can you remind me of the schedule for construction and all that?
Well,
as best we know.
Yeah, as best we know. Pat's got the latest info on that, so I'll let him.
Currently, right now, they're doing appraisals with the property owners through that stretch. I've already seen a couple of the appraisers out. I know Emerald Springs, one of the bigger properties, has theirs on Wednesday. And they might be one of the people that might lose a lot more land. Because they're pushing toward the island and brick walls. The schedule is contracts out January or February and ground May or June of 20th right now. That's what Nick down at county has said.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Did you? Next year.
Maybe a year away.
Also, they're gonna run, at the same time, they said, what is it, the Villa Hills, Crescent Springs, Short Amsterdam project? They were gonna do it at the same time.
Sidewalks.
Sidewalk. yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Where you guys all from? Dixie?
Welcome.
Okay. Did you learn anything tonight?
What'd you learn? I'll put you on the spot.
Erlinger has much more interesting meetings.
Don't go to Edgewood.
Okay.
Always ask questions, always.
That's right.
Do you have any questions of what you saw tonight?
Do you guys have like an agenda, like a meeting agenda?
Right on this table.
On the table there?
Just let me know if you guys need more. I don't know how many copies are sitting there.
Has anybody decided to go into politics after this meeting?
Well, this was an easy one.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Christie's
I'll
made a
second
motion.
I'm coming home, hon.
All in favor?
I'm just letting her know.
Meeting's adjourned.